everybody, welcome to the Comic Game Movie Show. My name is Deshaun, and today I'm here to talk about this big news that, it just kind of creeped up this morning. Just woke up, and all of a sudden I started hearing news that the Netflix Marvel shows will be leaving Netflix, and basically will be going to Disney to be put on and to be announced of where it's gonna go. Now, most likely it's gonna because internationally, some people don't know this. Internationally, Disney Plus has this extra tag on top, this extra thing called Stars. I think it's called Star. I can't remember if it's called Star. I think it might be just called Star. Called Star. And Star has a bunch of R-rated mature content. It has the Deadpool movies, the more R-rated stuff like the Logan movie, and other things, other R-rated properties that Fox and Disney owns or has owned over the years, and all that's on Star. And Star is attached to Disney Plus. It's not actually a part of Disney Plus. It's a different tab with all the mature stuff. It's you know how they got on when we go on Disney Plus in America, you see Star Wars, you see Marvel, you see National Geographic, you see Disney, you see all that Pixar. It's in there, but there's Stars, and Stars has all the rated R content. And so overseas, most likely they'll probably just move these shows over to Stars. But in America, most likely, at least for now, they're gonna move them to Hulu. So, Daredevil and all the Defenders, all those shows will be moved over to Hulu and probably have a renaissance of sorts because, there'll be a lot of attention on them that hasn't been on them in a while. So, they'll probably blow up on Hulu, to be honest. But this is crazy to me. This is crazy to me. My position about the Daredevil Netflix shows and whatnot not being canon, and the fact that I was I don't see them making these shows canon, was one of the big spots of my position. One of the big, at least I'd say one of the, let's say, pillars of my argument against that these Netflix shows wouldn't be canon to the MCU. And I know Charlie Cox showed up, and I know Vincent D'Onofrio showed up, but those characters, at least Vincent D'Onofrio's character, was so different than his character from the Daredevil series that to me it felt like a rebooted version of Daredevil. It's are there beats and character stuff that are similar? Yeah, but it seems like a rebooted version. And who knows about Charlie Cox's Daredevil? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. You didn't really get to see too much of him to really make that, to really make any, heads or tails of it. But I always thought that they were going to just reboot those characters. I thought that these actors would come back as rebooted versions of these characters. And one of the big reasons is something I always harped on because it was something that just wasn't brought up enough is why I always said, why would they even want to make those connections? Why would they want that? Are they really going to send people to Netflix? If you want to see the origins of our Daredevil, go and watch a Netflix show? Do they really want to give free advertising to Netflix? That's how I felt about it. I was would they really give free advertising to Netflix? Now that's gone. If Netflix no longer owns the rights to these shows, and these are going back to Disney, no one really knows how this happened, by the way. No one knows if it's a contract thing, because we know, if you're smart, if you've been, not if you're smart, but if you follow this stuff that I follow, I like to call us smart fans, kind of like how in wrestling got smart mercs. You got fucking got smart fucking, fans. You got smart fans now who know the stories and know what's going on behind the scenes. If you're like me and you know what's going on behind the scenes and things, you know that for the longest time, Fox and Sony, back when Fox was on its isolated company studio, and when Sony still is, there's a timeline. There's a timetable to how long they can go without producing a film before the rights revert back. It's kind of what got Sony in trouble, because so many of their films, they just made them because they had to make them. Because if they didn't make them, then the rights would just revert back to Marvel, aka at that time Marvel Studios / Disney. The rights would revert back, so they just had no choice but to make a move because they had to make some move. Same thing with Sony, and it kind of got both of them in trouble. And it wouldn't be surprising if there was some type of clause like that. That if these shows don't have a season put out or renewal or something at a certain time frame, then they revert back to Marvel Studios, because then they revert back to Disney/Marvel Studios. I wouldn't be surprised. And I also wouldn't be surprised if Marvel Studios/Disney just outright bought the rights to these shows. Because as big as these shows, because these shows aren't like, in the large scheme of Netflix, these shows were a big deal, but they're not a big deal anymore. The numbers that Netflix shows have done have been dwarfed by other things on Netflix and by other shows in general. And at the end of the day, they probably didn't have to pay as much to get the rights to these shows as you would think so. Sure, like people like us, we see the Daredevil show, we see all these things, and we hold them in high regards, but in actuality, these shoys, as expensive as these shows were to make, compared to some of the shows that are being made today, compared to the Disney Plus Marvel shows, it's not really as much as you think. And I could see a situation where they just decided to outright buy those shows just so they can have all their stuff under, Disney, so there won't be any loose Disney threads. Even though they can't do the same thing with Sony, they still worked out a deal with Sony where eventually all the Sony Spider-Man stuff will be on Disney Plus eventually. But this deal kind of changes everything. Like, this whole situation changes everything for me. Because if they wanted to, they could. And, I didn't think... when I was against, the Netflix shows and even the wider, Disney television shows being in the MCU, it was half of me being that the quality on Marvel television was so mixed that I didn't want that to be, attached to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, even though the Marvel Cinematic Universe isn't perfect. But I think compared to the Marvel television, it is. And I didn't want some of the stinks from some of the other shows and the budgetary. And from a visual standpoint, I didn't think that they would fit. But another half of me only thought that because I was like, well, it doesn't make any sense because of the way things have been written, because they don't actually have access to those characters. They can't do that. But now that they straight up own the characters, they own the shows, they could, if they wanted to, theoretically, make all of it canon. Make all of it canon if they wanted to. I don't think they will. I agree with some people who are saying they're probably going to just cherry pick what they like and, reboot what they don't. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not sure if we're going to get, Foggy Nelson and, Karen Page and shit. I'm not sure if it's going to just pick up right after the events of Daredevil Season 3. Or if it's going to, be, a soft reboot where they bring back the same cast. And it's just, I don't know. I really don't know. It's everything's up in the air with this, but this news really changes a lot for me though, because like I said, one of the big pillars that I stood my arguments on was that they would be given free advertising to Netflix, and I don't see why they would want to do that if it wasn't necessary. But now you don't even have to worry about that. So now it's just a matter of if Marvel wants to connect themselves to more R-rated content. You know what I mean? Because, Daredevil was R-rated, but that first season wasn't that bad. That first season was just kind of push TV-14. There wasn't, a lot of sex sequences in it. There wasn't a lot of things going on. It was more bloody and violent. And you can always pare that down. You know what I mean? You can always just kind of drop the blood and violence. And it makes me think, what I think is going to happen. This is what I think is going to happen. What I think is going to happen is, because I don't think they're going to merge Hulu and Disney Plus. I don't see. I've always thought it was unnecessary since they both come together anyways. You need that. I always quote Bob Iger. Bob Iger was a huge. Bob Iger is the greatest entertainment CEO of all time. He just is. And, that guy, when I think CEO, when I think, this dude just knew his shit. And one of the big things that he really kind of put his foot down on, and it's led to the success of Disney, is that he doesn't want to confuse his audience. He doesn't want to confuse his audience. He wants to make everything fucking crystal clear for his audience. He doesn't want to muddy the waters with this or that. And he never wanted to put R-rated content under the Disney name. He never wanted R-rated content under the Disney name. Now people say, well, Hulu is owned by Disney and this is owned by Disney. Yes it is, but it's not called Disney. Once you start making rated R films that have the Disney Plus check on it, then we're talking about Disney actually making R-rated content. And he never wanted to do that because he never wanted to get Disney in the weeds, because he understood that the biggest market, the biggest people who are going to come and see Disney films, and even to the MCU. I made a video. I haven't posted it up yet before. Maybe I will eventually. I debate if it's a little cheesy or not. But I made a video that I may post up, that I even talked about it in my video, that people don't understand that the MCU's primary audience is families. Like, that's their big money maker, is families. And would you really want to make a bunch of R-rated shit to isolate them, put parental guides on there, and that's be an entire section of the MCU that families can't watch together, that kids, can't watch? An entire section of the MCU that may or may not be important to the rest of the MCU that they can't watch? Would you really do that? And it muddies the water, which is why Bob Iger was totally against doing something like that. And I agreed with Bob Iger, and that's why I've always held it down against that kind of thinking. And I don't think Kevin Feige also agrees with that, since none of the things he's having in production are going to be R-rated content outside of Deadpool, which is the exception, not the rule. Deadpool's only getting an R rating because it's already a $1 billion franchise, and you can't really put that genie back in the bottle. But I digress. I don't think they're going to merge them. I think this is what's going to happen. I think they're going to put the original shows, the Netflix shows, on Hulu. Rebrand them, Hulu originals, like Netflix does. Like I love when I see Lucifer and I see Netflix original. I'm like, sure it is. But yeah, they're gonna put it back on. They're gonna put it on Hulu. They're gonna make a big thing about it, though. They're gonna make a big thing about it. Oh, these shows are coming to Hulu. They're gonna put them on Hulu. They're gonna do great. And then they're gonna cherry pick characters to do soft rebooted versions, soft reboots in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They're gonna do a soft reboot version of Daredevil that's gonna be violent but not so over the top. It's gonna be TV. It's gonna be TV PG-13 to TV-14 when it needs to be. Like that's the road they're gonna ride. It's gonna be like they're gonna have some blood and stuff, but they're not gonna go too far with it. Like, it's gonna be Daredevil, but so they're gonna be in that little range of PG-13, TV-14 with Daredevil. They're probably gonna bring Luke Cage and Iron Fist, but I have a feeling they're gonna do an Iron Fist movie, because Iron Fist is such a huge cinematic character that I always thought Iron Fist would work better as a film anyways, just because of how big that character is. So maybe they'll do him in the movie. Well, you guys already know. I already made the prediction that the next Shang-Chi movie should revolve around him finding Iron Fist. So maybe they'll do that. Jessica Jones could be done. But Jessica Jones is kind of a rougher character. All I know is, I'm not sure about the Punisher. The Punisher, because I've made arguments that you can do any film without an R rating. And I agree with John Campion on this. If your film needs an R rating, then you're not very creative. Like, it's just, to me, plain and simple, you lack imagination, that you can't come up with a creative way of getting that across that doesn't involve you just doing it. You know what I mean? And, for most part, I agree. But there are certain characters that I'm like, I don't know. It does feel a little pared down. It does feel a little, watered down if it's nothing. Like, for the Punisher. Like, if the Punisher isn't murdering people and you don't see bloodshed, it doesn't really hit the same. Like, the Punisher doesn't have to have a lot of swearing. It doesn't have to have a lot of sex and things of that nature. But the violence for the Punisher has to be visceral, because he's not a good dude. Like, he's a good dude, but what he's doing is wrong. And it should be visceral for you to understand what he's doing is very wrong. So I'm not sure how you do the Punisher without doing an R rating. Or maybe you just don't do the Punisher at all. Like, honestly, maybe you just don't. It sucks, but maybe you don't. Because all the other Marvel Netflix characters can be rebooted into the MCU fairly easily. Luke Cage doesn't need all the sex and stuff to work still. Because that's pretty much what took it over the top, is the violence, is the bloodshed, violence, and swearing and sex. But none of that is important to the actual core of the show and what's going on. Jessica Jones, sure, some of the, there's not even a ton of sex scenes in Jessica Jones. And some of the violence can get over the top, but that private investigator feel and the trauma and whatnot, you can still get that over the top without having to resort to it being so outwardly, brutal and violent about it. An Iron Fist is just easy. Iron Fist is easy. Iron Fist can be done so easily without, just PG-13 and whatever fashion. So can Daredevil to a lesser extent. Daredevil has to have a little bit of an edge to it. Daredevil has to kind of be like the Batman movie. The Batman movie is PG-13, Some people forgot about that, but the Batman movie is PG-13. So, give Daredevil that kind of treatment. Give him like an edge. But you don't have to push it so far, you know what I mean? But like now I'm just thinking like, they're gonna just put all this shit in production, But I'm not sure. I'm still not sure if they're gonna bring back the actors and whatnot. I'm like, this whole thing is crazy to me. It was something that I thought Netflix owned the rights to these shows. So this whole thing is nuts. And like, I looked on Netflix, it says the Daredevil show is not gonna be available on February the 28th. Which is not that long from now. So I was like, dude, this is crazy. This is crazy. But anyways, thank you guys for watching the Kind of Game Movie Show. Please like, subscribe. And what do you think about this news that the Netflix shows are leaving? That the Marvel Netflix shows are leaving Netflix? What does it mean? Where are they going? Are they going to recast? Are they breaking all these characters, making them canon? What is going on? Comment below and let me know. Thank you guys for watching the Kind of Game Movie Show. I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.